When it comes to serial killers, everyone might think of them as targeting innocent people, being extremely evil, social scum that should have been eliminated long ago. However, there is a very special serial killer in Brazil. For decades, he specialized in killing various drug dealers, sex offenders, gangsters, and murderers, especially men who bullied women and committed violence against women, which were his top targets. He even killed his own biological father. He is Pedro Rodrigues Filho, a murderer who killed nearly 100 people. In some people's hearts, he is a terrifying psychopathic killer, while in others he is a superhero, an embodiment of justice, and a killer who only kills bad guys and criminals. How to view him depends on which version of the story you have heard. In his old age, Rodrigues sat in front of the computer, recording his new YouTube video. On YouTube, he judged various extreme criminal cases and even taught young people not to commit crimes. He said, "These crimes make me angry. These fraudsters have taken away the happiness of others." He said, "That young girl was so pitiful. She had a family, a son, and was so beautiful, but the devil took her away." He said, "There will always be traces of murder. No one can escape punishment." Rodrigues' tone was sometimes gentle and sometimes angry, making it hard to associate him with the title of the most terrifying criminal in Brazil. He killed at least 100 people, 70 of which were convicted of murder, and more than 10 occurred during his youth. But the criminologist who wrote his biography called him a perfect psychopathic killer. They said he never killed the innocent but only bad guys to uphold justice. His existence is no different from a superhero. They said that those who died at his hands were violent rapists, drug dealers, thieves, and murderers. His fans patrolled near his home, and he received a continuous stream of love letters even in prison. Looking at his life is like watching an exciting black movie. Rodrigues had a very unfortunate childhood. He was born in 1954 on a farm in a small town in Brazil. His father was a very violent man. He gambled and drank heavily. During the period when Rodrigues' mother was pregnant, he often committed violent acts against his wife. Whenever he was in a bad mood or had a difficult life, he would vent his anger by hitting people. Therefore, when Rodrigues was born, his head was disabled due to the beatings his mother suffered during pregnancy. After his birth, Rodrigues did not escape the fate of being beaten. He also grew up under the shadow of daily punches and kicks, which made him a timid, cowardly, sensitive, and forbearing boy since childhood. Such a childhood was destined to distort his character. When other 13-year-old children were bullied, they would only cry and go home to find their mothers. But when he was 13 years old, after being bullied by his cousin, he even had the cruel idea of pushing his cousin into a juicer. Every bit of life was silently remembered by Rodrigues in his heart, but it should be known that emotions accumulated for a long time would eventually explode. In Rodrigues' 14th year, this day finally came, and he began his first murder. At that time, his father was a security guard at the school. Someone framed his father for stealing food from the cafeteria and even reported it to the deputy mayor. The deputy mayor did not listen to the explanations of these civilians and directly and decisively fired his father. Rodrigues' inner resentment erupted all at once. He directly took a shotgun and killed the deputy mayor. Then, when he learned that it was the framing of another security guard, he immediately killed the real thief. The oppressed underdog avenged his father. The childhood full of bitterness and hatred brought him endless legend. But the reality was that Rodrigues never carefully investigated the truth of his father's theft. Believing that the deputy mayor wronged his father and that the thief was someone else were all his own wishful thinking. For the justice in his mind, 2 people were shot dead. Killing 2 people at once made Rodrigues unable to stay in this place and had to leave his hometown and start a life of escape. After fleeing to São Paulo, he was still surrounded by darkness and injustice. At that time, in that era, social security was poor, and the police would not care about the lives and deaths of civilians. In the Brazilian slums where drug dealers ran rampant. To survive, he dealt drugs, broke into houses and stole, and took money from the gang to kill for them. During this process, he met Maria, the widow of a local drug lord. Although Maria was much older than him, he immediately fell in love, and the two soon lived together. Maria was pregnant with the underage Rodriguez child. While emerging victorious in one round of gang battles after another, he also robbed the rich to help the poor. The people in the slums both respected and feared him. With his ruthlessness, he quickly became the new king of the drug lord empire in the slums. To reach this position, he killed a series of rivals and 3 former partners. At that time, he was only 16 years old. Rodriguez felt that perhaps he was born to join the gang. He had the support of many gang members, a girlfriend, and an unborn child. Everything made him look forward to it, but the chaotic gang struggles never allowed one to see the future. Rodriguez and his pregnant girlfriend were captured by the leader of an opposing gang during a struggle, and eventually both the girlfriend and the fetus were executed on the spot. Rodriguez narrowly escaped. The death of his girlfriend and child aroused Rodriguez's again insane desire for revenge. He traced several people related to the murder of his girlfriend one by one, tortured them with torture, forced them to confess more accomplices, and then executed them. Eventually, Rodriguez and a group of gang members surrounded the leader of the opposing gang, who was a wedding guest at a wedding. At the wedding, Rodriguez launched a bloody revenge battle. Machetes and bullets flew through the crowd, and when they left, the ground was covered in blood and flesh. In this crazy revenge, 7 people died and 16 were injured. Rodriguez was still under 18 years old at that time, and the blood debts in his hands were already more than the time he had lived in the world. You can consider him a knight who avenges for love. You can regard him as the male lead in a movie. But among the dead and injured, most were innocent guests. Not like he said only the bad guys were killed. This incident caused a sensation throughout Brazil at that time, and the police began to issue a comprehensive wanted notice for him. Having lost his lover and having no support, feeling empty-hearted and having nowhere to go, he finally decided to go home and seek some comfort from his family. After escaping various police pursuits, he finally returned home. However, his father was a violent man. After returning home, Rodriguez learned that his mother had been beaten to death by his father. Having just lost his lover and now his mother, this was undoubtedly a double blow for him. He was grief-stricken. After learning that his father was serving his sentence in prison, he immediately went there. He carried a small knife with him and, in the prison, took the opportunity when the prison guards were not paying attention to kill his father. He slashed his father 22 times and dug out his father's heart with the knife, chewed a big bite on the spot, and then spat it on the ground, shocking everyone. This murder in prison under the eyes of everyone finally made him unable to escape. At the age of 19, after experiencing all these loves and hatreds, he gave up struggling and was arrested and imprisoned. When he was arrested, there was a rapist in the police car that was taking him to prison. When the police opened the car door upon arrival at the prison, they found that this rapist had also been killed by him. Rodriguez killed this person with whom he had never had any intersection. He proudly admitted to the murder. He was a rapist. I killed him. He didn't care at all that he would have to spend several more years in prison because of this. Rodriguez believed that this person's crimes were heinous and deserved to die. After all, his 2 most beloved women, one died due to domestic violence and the other was killed after being violated. He simply could not tolerate these people who beat and raped women. From this perspective, the prison was full of criminals and every prisoner's crime could be a reason for Rodriguez to kill. At that time, there was no death penalty in Brazil. After many people were imprisoned and served their sentences, they would be released when their sentences were over. Many people did not reform after being released from prison. Therefore, it's hard to say whether they would continue to do bad things. The emergence of Rodriguez advanced the death dates of these criminals. The prison management was loose and many people formed gangs. Looking at these scumbags, Rodriguez had an urge to kill. The prison period was the most frequent period of his killing activities. He killed at least 47 fellow prisoners. Some were husbands who killed their wives, some were pedophiles, rapists, and drug dealers. It was even said that the sudden death of the park killer who caused the anger of the entire Brazil in the serial rape and murder case that killed more than a dozen women was also at the hands of Rodrigues. Rodrigues did not feel the slightest guilt for the deaths of these people. He just said indifferently that he felt it was their deserved retribution. Killing these criminals could bring him excitement and pleasure, especially the most satisfying when killing with a knife. He also stated that he would not kill those innocent people, but was Rodrigues killing really for justice? As he said in an early interview, like many serial killers, he expressed that he would get a huge sense of pleasure and joy after killing, and he was addicted to such pleasure. He killed people just because he liked to kill. Eliminating evil was just an excuse to rationalize the act of killing. He tattooed the words, "I enjoy killing" on his left arm. This is not something a superhero would do. The killings to avenge his father, mother, and lover all revolved around Rodrigues' private emotions. His judgment standard only existed in his own mind, not the so-called social justice. He was the judge and the only executioner. Revenge was the most forgivable reason for his killings. After being released from prison, Rodrigues disappeared for several years. When people were gradually about to forget him, suddenly on September 15, 2011, news came that Rodrigues was arrested and imprisoned again. This time, the charges were false imprisonment and inciting riots. Based on these crimes, he will continue to serve his sentence. After being released again in 2018, Rodrigues also changed his previous behavior. Perhaps due to his old age, Rodrigues' previous impulsiveness disappeared, and he also understood more truths. He told his deeds on the internet to young people, advised them not to imitate him, and told them to deal with and punish bad guys with the right means. He even converted to Catholicism and has since followed Jesus piously to wash away his past in this way. Recalling his life, he said, "God has punished me a lot. I used to be very bad because people were also not good to me." And this mentally disturbed serial killer did not have a good ending. Around 10 a.m. on March 5, 2023, two suspects in a black car shot Rodrigues. One of the suspects even pierced the throat of Rodrigues, who had already been shot and fallen with a kitchen knife. Then the two boarded another car and fled the scene. After the police received the alarm call, they found the abandoned car and firearms and ammunition at the crime scene. Subsequently, they seized Rodrigues' mobile phone, the suspect's abandoned car, and a gallon of gasoline found near the car. The case has been registered as a homicide, but as of now, no one has been arrested.